Ari, thank you for joining me. It's really great to see you again. And I loved this play. It's so moving.
Thank you.
You start this play on a night that anyone who knows you knows about, which is the 2018 Tony Awards.
Yeah.
Why was it important to you to start there?
Well, we realized that it was sort of a really interesting entry point for the play, sort of as this juxtaposition between what the world might assume would be the greatest night of my life and then what was actually happening for me inside. Obviously, you saw the play, so spoiler alert, I'm having panic attacks at the after party. I'm getting sort of feels like accosted by well-wishers, people who are excited to be there, and I'm having trouble accepting that praise, feeling comfortable, feeling calm. And it felt like it was the right place to start the play, which was that this is when it becomes clear to me and the character in the play that this is the dramatic problem and that this is the low point, and that character, Ari, in the play, and myself, it's kind of hard to sort of go between both, but that he needs to figure out what's going on. And the juxtaposition again of that moment of success versus what was happening inside felt like the trigger point for a dramatic story.
On Tony Night, you gave a very eloquent acceptance speech. And in that speech, and I might be missaying it, you said your biggest obstacle may be your purpose.
Yep.
It feels like you gave yourself a homework assignment because this play takes that into account. Were you thinking about that when you were writing?
No, I mean, so what's funny is that in that moment, my consciousness as a 26-year-old was like, I felt, and the play deals with all these years hiding my identity, and I talked about that in my speech. And so I felt like it was a watershed moment for me. I felt like, my gosh, I'm playing an Egyptian character, Middle Eastern character who's three-dimensional, and he's suave, and he sings well. And so that was something as a kid who grew up in America in the aftermath of 9/11, I never thought that I would see a Middle Eastern character be that way. We were sort of really flattened to a stereotype. And so in that moment, I believed what I was saying. It just so happened that there was something else happening underneath, which was that all those years of concealing, all those years of hiding was still living in my body. And I wasn't really ready to receive all of the wonderful things that were happening in my life, and I didn't believe them. And so underneath that was this anxiety. And it was something that I'd always hoped would disappear, that would vanish. And I certainly thought that winning a Tony Award might really help that. Like you would sort of feel like with that achievement, I could walk into the world with my shoulders up and feel confident. But the opposite happened, which is that I was still little old me. And I think I'm 34 now. I think I spent the first 30 years of my life trying to sort of rip it out of my body. And I kept thinking that some external achievement might help me finally feel whole, might finally help me feel the confident, sort of idealized version that I wanted to be. And I just wasn't that. And so it took 2 years after winning the award to sort of confront anxiety as something not that I will eventually eliminate from my life, but it's something that I need to actually hold hands with.
So much about this show is about hiding.
Yep.
You have hypohidrosis, which is excessive sweating.
Yep.
That's hard for an actor. You're on stage, especially.
Yep.
There's no cut. You're up there, and it's revealed. You can just, be who you are here.
Yeah.
And I feel like in this play, you not only address that, you just like invite us all in to feel what it feels like to constantly have to cover.
Yep.
In many ways. Tell me about that.
Well, when we decided that I was going to address my sweating thing, I was scared. I didn't want to reveal it. It sucks. And actually, it happened at You're Live on 5.
Right. So several years ago, before you won the Tony, when you came to Live at 5 at Broadway.com, and I interviewed you because I like to interview you because you're so talented and I love talking to you, and you were definitely suffering.
Yeah.
And we didn't discuss it during the interview. We just soldiered on. But I know that you were having a hard time.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the Tony Awards, I was backstage interviewing the winners, and you were having a hard time then too, and it was obvious.
Oh, you saw that?
I saw that, and a publicist said to me, he's a little anxious, and I thought, yeah, but also how weird for an actor, because the whole point is getting up in front of people.
Well, and yeah, I'm really grateful that I can be real here and we can talk about it openly. I mean, I think it's also the greatest gift to an actor, so it sort of has So the play starts, and within the first 3 minutes, I say, I'm going to sweat my ass off throughout this show. And I say, but here's my emotional support hanky, and on we go. Right. And nobody worry, and I go like that. And it gives me freedom.
Yeah.
And the reason why I talk about it is because, A, it's obviously very vulnerable to me, but I find that it frees other people.
Right, because the audience can then just put that out of their mind and focus on the story.
Sometimes. I mean, some people also feel like it makes them feel uncomfortable. You know, so I think that like that makes me feel sad for them, because part of why I'm sweating that much is because I'm running all around the stage the whole time. But like, it's my truth.
Yeah,
it's my truth, and I think a lot of people feel free because they're seeing my truth.
And in many ways, to be anxious is to care about what you're doing. It's not like you're not just phoning it in, for example.
Totally.
You're completely committed to what you're doing.
Well, I think there's that, but I also think that like it's also just sort of a state of being.
Yeah.
And I think the point is, and you asked me what happened after the Tony Awards, it was like, after all these years of hiding, I'm doing the show because I can't hide anymore. I cannot hide anymore. I refuse to hide anymore. And so I think that, I just think the beauty of it is that when we get that real, it gives other people permission to get that real. And the people that come to me after the show, the different entry points that people have of hiding, whether it is elderly gay couples who are white and who probably prefer watching Hello Dolly, right? But they're saying they see themselves in the story. Or older Japanese couples who are telling me, it reminds me of their experiences with their parents being in internment camps and hiding their Japanese identity. And so I stand on the shoulders of a lot of other public figures who are coming out and saying, hey, we're dealing with anxiety, whether it's Kevin Love, the NBA player, or Simone Biles. And every time they do that, my shoulders drop.
Yeah.
And so this is what I think is honestly my service as an artist, is to say, I've sharpened my skills for my whole life. I've trained my whole life to do this. And how do I use those skills to both entertain, but through that entertainment, free people? And so the conversations I'm having after this show versus after the band's visit are very, very different. And unfortunately, sometimes I don't have the bandwidth because people just come and they want to share everything, and I'm honored and I'm there and I do it. But
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back for people who don't know and just talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure.
So that people understand what we're discussing here.
Yeah. So as you know, so I am the son of a Yemenite Israeli father who was a taxi driver when he moved to this country. Street smart, totally a charming guy. And my mom is an Ashkenazi Jew, very academic. She's the daughter of a physicist and a social worker. And so my parents are an unlikely pair. But what I think most people don't understand is that I grew up straddling two very different Jewish cultures. Yeah. So on the one hand, it was a Yemenite Jewish culture, which has different music and traditions and a different sort of way of practicing. And on the other side was Ashkenazi American. And then I was diagnosed with OCD as a 5-year-old. And so I was sort of living both with something that was very intense psychologically, just having OCD and sort of this obsessive mind, and also straddling these two cultures in a way that neither of my parents had ever had to deal with. So like my dad didn't understand my identity struggles. He was just like, well, you're Jewish. Like it was, for him, it's very simple. But his American-born son going to school very quickly realized that, the way that you look can really change the way that you are perceived at school. But of course, the other background, I ended up, becoming an actor. I made it onto Broadway. I did the band's visit. And so I did find refuge in characters and in acting. And so that's why I'm here at Broadway.com today with that's very nice.
Many, many years ago, I interviewed you for A Fresh Face on Broadway.com. And you told me that as a little kid, you could do impressions of, what a range, Yasser Arafat and Elvis Presley.
Yes.
Now, you don't need to know that walking in to see other, but you can see the range that you can embody because you are playing dozens and dozens of characters in this show.
Yeah.
And they are very different. They all have their own physicality, including the voices in your head.
Yes.
And so tell me about finding the distinctiveness of each one, keeping them separate, and tapping into that thing that you've been doing since you were little.
Yeah. So actually, one of my most natural talents was transforming. And because I had different languages at the house and also my OCD, I would get obsessed with how people would talk. Obsessed, really obsessed. And so it sort of came to me naturally. And people would say, well, do that person. I said, I can't do it. But then another person, like a teacher, I would do it. Obviously in the show, you know, I would just crack up my classmates doing our teachers and pick up on things that they were like, how are you picking up on that? And so those characters have lived in my body and in my spirit and my soul through all time. There are certain characters, such as the grandmother character, I'll give a little taste maybe, but or my dance teacher. These are people that live inside of me. On the other hand, creating the character of Meredith was very, very challenging. And Meredith, as you know, is the invented character. It's the only invented character in the play, and she is my OCD. And
she's a voice in your head
telling you. She's a voice in my head telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And so personifying Meredith took a lot of work because my OCD likes real things. It likes real characters, and I know exactly what that is. But inventing a character and creating a character that exists in my mind that is theatrical was really, really, really hard. And we ended up finding an Eartha Kitt interview.
Oh, wow.
And Eartha Kitt kind of had this thing where she would kind of be like this, and then she's like,
very dramatic.
Like that. And so we ended up finding, and so I ultimately realized that I had to just find a character as opposed to sort of make it so literal. This play here in New York has resonated in ways that it hasn't anywhere else. And it is a story for everyone, but it really means something special to me when there's a lot of people of color in the audience. And I have to give a shout out to LaShawne's, my lead producer.
The best.
Broadway royalty. But she has brought in a really diverse audience, and it has blown me away how they see themselves in my story. And that's something that we haven't had until we've been in New York. And so that's really the joy of just having incredibly beautiful, diverse audiences.
It's wonderful that a work that you wrote can be so universally related to. People really get it.
Well, totally. And I thought, you know, and especially, you know, we live in really polarized times. I am the son of an Israeli Yemenite father. I don't consider myself to be political, but I certainly want to be a unifier. And I'm someone who really, I said it at the Tony Award stage, and Arabs and Israelis getting along at a time where we need it more than ever. And so there was a fear perhaps that LaShawne's, after the world and my identity became so politicized, that she might be intimidated by being a part of it. And she said the opposite. She dug in. And she said, this is exactly what we need to build bridges. And I do have to commend her because it shouldn't be as radical as it is for a Black woman to be producing work that is not Black. But LaShawne's producing outside of her cultural experience somehow is radical. And it is radical, but it shouldn't be radical.
100%.
And so that's sort of the bridge building that we're trying to do in real time. We're trying to say, you know, she's putting me under her arms as a fellow Tony-winning performer, stepping into her power as a producer, and I, as a performer first, stepping into my power as a writer. And it feels, without sounding too precious, because it's still just theater, right? But it feels like the world we want to live in. You know, I say this often, and I'll say it to you again, like, I didn't write this to wave a flag and say, like, I am an Arab Jew. But the fact that people are seeing themselves in the story of an Arab Jew means the world to me.
Ari, thanks for coming in. It's so good to see you again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.